Hey everybody, I'm going to try to be short with this today, but I will have to tell you the story that you're going to study today in Sunday school is one of my personal most favorite stories. So last week we talked about how God had called Moses because he had heard the cries of his people. And so they are in Egypt in slavery, and God raises up Moses, and Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, hey, with the help of Aaron, let my people go. And Pharaoh says no. And so then they go through this series of the plagues. And basically, God is bringing the Pharaoh to a point where he has to recognize that he is not in control. Now, for us, that we may miss some of that, but especially in this Egyptian culture, pharaohs were worshipped as gods. Pyramids, those were temples to honor these fallen gods. There was a lot of mythology and misunderstanding about that. And so Pharaoh was not just like an elected official, like a president. He was worshipped. And so there is this series of exchange where, the water turns to blood and locusts come and gnats and frogs and then the plants get sick and die because of the hailstorm, and then locusts come and eat everything. And there is all the animals struck with sickness. Basically, the nation of Egypt is brought to ruin. And then finally, in Exodus chapter 12, God institutes this picture of Passover. And Passover is where the Israelites would offer a sacrifice and take the blood of that animal and put it across the doorpost to show that they recognized that animal's life was paying the price for their sin. And then that night when the angel of death passed through, it would pass over those houses, skip over them because they were marked by the blood, which is an exact picture of Jesus. It's a picture of when we trust in Jesus and we understand and put our faith in him because he took the punishment for our sin, we are covered by his blood. So when God sees us, he doesn't see our sin, but he sees the blood of Jesus that's covering us. And that makes a way for us to have relationship with him. It's all pointing towards what Jesus was going to do someday on the cross for them. And so at the next morning after this happens, Pharaoh is heartbroken because his firstborn has been killed. And he finally says, go, get out of here. And so Moses leads the people very quickly. And they leave. Then Pharaoh changes his mind. Through the end of chapter 13, we see how God was with the nation of Israel and he was leading them and showing them which way to go through a pillar of fire by night and cloud by day. In chapter 14, we see when Pharaoh has changed his mind. And I think it's like any stage of grief and loss, you go through that extreme sorrow and then the anger sets in. And when Pharaoh's anger sets in, he is going after the nation. So he sends his army armed with their chariots and horses to travel and to chase down the Israelites. And so it comes to this point where they are kind of trapped. In front of them is the Red Sea, this giant body of water that they cannot go around, they can't swim across, they're stuck with their backs up against it. Behind them is this Egyptian army chasing after them, wanting to kill them or recapture them and carry them back. It's a hopeless, stuck situation. And I don't know about you, but I have found myself in those types of places where I did not know what was going to happen or what I was going to do or what was coming next. And Moses prays and he tells the people who are panicking, who are thinking, it would have been better for us just to have stayed in slavery. Like, why did you do this? Why'd you drag us all out here? And Moses tells the people, don't be afraid. Today you are going to see. Well, let me just read it for you. It's in chapter 14. Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you only have to be silent. And so he prays, and God tells Moses to extend his staff over the water. And when he does, the water parts, and a path is cut out in the middle of this sea. And so the Israelites began to walk down this path. And we're talking a massive sea. And so when they get out into the middle of it, and there is water all the way up on top of them, that's still a scary place to be. Because I assume if they're anything like me, their mind is telling them, this cannot be. Water can't just stand up like that. What's going to happen if the wind blows? And there's this danger behind them. There's this danger all around them. And they just keep walking in obedience, step by step, by step, by step. And they see the deliverance that God provides whenever we are obedient to him. And so they all get across on the other side. And then the Egyptians come after them. And as they come in to the Red Sea, and when they get to the middle, God tells Moses to extend his staff over the water again. And the waters are released. And the Egyptian army is destroyed. Then the people begin to worship. I love this story for so many different reasons. But I think what I love the most is when they were completely at their wits' end. They had no idea what was going to happen. God had a solution. And he had thought of every single detail. They walked on dry ground. Not in mud that they were having to slosh through, on dry ground so that they could escape what was happening. Like, y'all, that just blows my mind. So, today, as you get a chance to study this passage, chapters 13, 14, or 12, 13, and 14, I pray that God just speaks to your heart in a fresh way. This is one of those stories that you've probably heard 100 times, but I pray that this time it would really, really speak to your heart. And as you share this story with the kids, you can convey the wonder and the majesty of everything that God did. There are some activities that are in your lesson guide, such as streamers, and they wave them like they're the sea, and then they split into two groups to make a path through. There is some with sand, and I will, if you want to do the sand, let me know and I'll make sure that you have some. You could do it with Play-Doh, and they could cup the Play-Doh and make two parts of it. You have Play-Dohs in your classroom. There are lots of different things that you can do with this story. So I hope that I'm excited to get to share this one, because this really is one of my most favorite stories, and I could go on and on and on about it. But I just pray for you, and I just ask that God would just speak to you in a fresh way this week. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, and I know it's going to be a great day.